I'm Tim Constantine, and from Washington, D.C., this is the Capitol Hill Show. If you listen to the American mainstream media, you might think Donald Trump is undisciplined and chaotic. Yet, in his lifetime, he has amassed a multi-billion-dollar business empire. He put together one of the top shows on American television, and in 2016, against all odds, he beat Hillary Clinton for the presidency of the United States. Now, in 2024, he might have pulled off his biggest surprise yet, in what some are calling the greatest political comeback in history, while fighting in the courts, while fighting against assassins, and going up against a hostile media. Once again, Donald Trump was victorious and is headed back to the White House. Maybe he's not so undisciplined after all.
That Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
Donald Trump's 2024 election victory was dominant in every way. He won the Electoral College 312 to 226, including winning all 7 of the so-called battleground states. He won the popular vote nationwide by nearly 3 million votes. If you take California, America's largest state and also heavily Democrat, if you take California out of the equation, Trump's lead doubles to nearly 6 million votes. If you break it down even further and show every county in America that voted in favor of Donald Trump, you realize just how dominant this victory was. Much of the American mainstream media abhors Donald Trump, but despite their daily pounding of the unorthodox Republican, a big chunk of the American public, it seems, loves him. So how did Donald Trump turn it all around after losing to Joe Biden in 2020? What were the keys to his overwhelming victory? To get answers, we sat down with the man some call the architect of Trump's win, Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be on with you.
Electoral College, popular vote, U.S. Senate, and it sure looks like the House of Representatives. You got to be happy.
We're very happy. You know, it gives us a great opportunity to really change the direction of the country, change the direction of the world, which is why you got to go in to do these things, you know, and really truly when you look at what President Trump was saying throughout the course of this entire election cycle is we want an opportunity to restore the southern border, rebuild our economy, and make sure that we're strong enough to protect our interests and our allies around the world. We're now in a position to do that. It feels really good.
Let's talk about 2 pieces of the election itself. One is voter turnout and what the party did along those lines. And the second is voter integrity.
Yeah, well, when we came in back in March, Laura Trump as my co-chair and me, we sat down and said, hey, we're going to focus on the basics of winning this election cycle. And it really came down to get out the vote and protect the ballot. Really massive national efforts at both of those. Very, very successful. And I think that really, truly, we hit our marks on both categories all the way up and down.
You mentioned you came in March, and I would the analogy I would make is like when an NFL team is floundering a little bit, not performing the way the owners expect, and they do a rebuild. They bring in new management, they bring in new players, they bring in new team. How much and how difficult was the rebuild starting in March during an election year?
Well, look, I mean, we came in when President Trump cleared the primary. And so really, truly, it was what you need to do to win as a general election candidate. And basically, the first thing that we did was we merged all of the RNC's operations with the campaign's operations. So we had, instead of 2 different political units, 2 different communications teams, digital, data, fundraising, we merged those together so that everybody was on the same page and everybody was singing off the same song sheet. And it really made a tremendous difference. We were able, over the course of this election cycle, to really, truly hit our mark on the fundraising and make sure we had the resources that we needed. But we had one unified political team. We created the first ever national election integrity program and really, truly had all of that operating together. Now, of course, we have House races, we have Senate races, and we had very close coordination with the Senate committee and the House committee. But at the end of the day, it really made a tremendous difference for us to unify those operations with the presidential team and make sure we were hitting what we need to be hitting in the battleground states.
We mentioned the Republican Party won the trifecta this go around. How important is the Senate in all of this?
I don't think you can underestimate how important it is. I mean, it really truly is. For everything that needs to get done by the administration is going to require senior administration officials that have to be cleared by the Senate. You've got to have the confirmations. So that's absolutely critical. And then, the rest of the agenda, whether he talking about tax cuts or you're talking about additional changes to the structure of the federal government, that's going to have to go through the House and the Senate. And at the same time, you're not going to be facing the same obstacles that you would with the Democratic gavels, just in terms of the constant attacks that we've seen on the president's administration during the first term.
During the election itself, there's a strategy to be implemented. You have to decide what states are priorities, what states will win. We hear about the 7 swing states. Ultimately, the president took all 7. In 2016, he took what they call the blue wall. The Democrats have traditionally had Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, year after year after year. In 2016, he took those away from Hillary Clinton. He won. In 2020, the Democrats took those 3 states back, and they took the White House back. This year, Trump again took the blue wall. What was different this year?
Well, I really think it was his relentless focus on the issues that the voters cared about. We saw poll after poll after poll that said that the voters' number one issue was the economy. It was inflation. It was grocery prices, gasoline prices, housing prices. Donald Trump talked about that at every single event, on every single interview, on every single medium over the course of the election cycle, what he was going to do to bring that inflation in and bring those prices down. And then also the fact that illegal immigration and the southern border was the number 2 issue that we saw. And it was about the migrant invasion. It was about fentanyl. It was about migrant crime. And Donald Trump at every single event had a plan to be able to address those. Kamala Harris did not. Kamala Harris was going to double down on every single inflationary spending program she had. She was also going to raise taxes. She also was doubling down on the border stance, and she was not going to shut down that border and stop the flow of illegal immigrants across it. So that was really the table set that we went into for every single discussion in every single set. The fact is, every community that we were reaching out to, not just the base Republican community, but when we went into Philadelphia, we went into Detroit, we went into New York, we went into Atlanta, we went into Milwaukee, we were having those conversations with Hispanic voters, with Black voters, with Asian American voters. And that's not a surprise to me that we saw historic shifts in those voting blocks coming towards President Trump versus where they were in 2020 and even 2016.
Sometimes in politics, the parties will focus on various groups like blacks, Hispanics, women, whatever the category is during the election year. But then that kind of slips away for a couple of years. How important is it to maintain that communication during these next 2 or 4 years?
It'll be absolutely critical. And one of the things that we saw from Donald Trump's first term was promises made, promises kept. The things that he talked about during that election cycle, he translated those into administrative actions, his own actions, and the legislative agenda. That's exactly what we're going to see here. So when he says on day 1, he's going to bring down prices, he's going to end inflationary spending, unleash American energy to bring those prices down, that's what he's going to do. When he talks about shutting down that southern border on day 1, you know that with the appointments that he's already put in place and the conversations that have already taken place, that's going to happen. He is going to shut down that southern border, and we're going to go after the criminals that are here first and make sure that we're going to expel them from the country and that we are going to get a handle on the invasion that we've seen over the last 4 years.
There are 2 phrases we often hear when a new administration is coming in. Day 1 is one of them. I'm going to do this on day 1. I'm going to do that on day 1. The other is the first 100 days and working with Congress, trying to achieve an agenda while they have the public's attention, hopefully the public's goodwill. What are the top priorities during that first 100 days?
Well, I think the first 2 are going to be bringing down prices and ending inflation And then, of course, the border, right? And so he's talked about on day one, I'm going to unleash American energy. I'm going to secure the border. I think we can definitely count on that. I think the confirmation process is going to be absolutely critical in making sure that we have all of the senior officers in place across the government to be able to implement his agenda. And then, of course, we're going to look at the tax cuts. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and making sure that we extend the Trump tax cuts are going to be a very high priority for him out of the gate.
Let me ask you to take me behind the curtain a little bit during the campaign. And I would argue the high point for Kamala Harris was the debate. I think it was all downhill after that point for her. Whether you follow the polls, whether you follow money, whether you follow, everything seemed to slow down for her. But many people thought she won that debate. What was the discussion behind the scenes within the party and with the President Trump, on whether or not to do another debate?
Well, really, there were two things that we took out of that debate. First was she categorically refused to answer any question that she was given. And she did not answer the hard questions or the soft questions. She simply had a set of talking points that she had memorized that she put out over and over and over again. The other thing was that Donald Trump was not just talking to the moderators. He was not just debating Kamala Harris. He was talking directly to the American voters. He did not get asked a single question about the economy, which is the number one issue on every voter's mind. He was not asked any questions about the border, which is the number two issue on everybody's mind. So he took the opportunity during that 90 minutes to talk past her, to talk past the moderators to the American people and get his message out on those issue sets that the American voters cared about. So we knew that he had done better than everybody immediately thought with it. But, at the end of the day, in terms of another opportunity for a debate, he certainly welcomed another debate. He had accepted another debate with Fox News. He had accepted another debate with NBC News. Kamala Harris rejected those. And then when she started floundering through the campaign and came back late and said she wanted one, we already had people voting. And frankly, there was no call for him to give her that platform, because he can go out and talk to 50, 60, 70 million Americans anytime he wants to. She didn't have that ability. So it made a lot of sense for us to just continue to put our head down and go talk directly to the American people.
I remember in 2012 when Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney, that the Republican Party itself took a step back, took a deep breath, and did a deep, comprehensive review, not only of the candidate and what they might or might not have done right marketing, but how they ran a campaign. They really looked in depth at how things went. How important is it to do that now? Everything went really well this year. The results for the Republican Party were exactly what you had hoped for. How important is it to take a deep breath, step back, and see what you did right?
Well, it's very important, right? Donald Trump is not going to be on the ballot again. So for us as Republicans to make this an enduring majority in the House, an enduring majority in the Senate, and to try and win the White House going forward, you've got to look at what happened over the course of the last 4 years, what happened over the last 2 years during this election cycle. How was he able to get a significant shift in women's votes? How was he able to get that shift in Hispanic votes, Black votes, Asian American votes? What were the conversations that took place? We know that it was because he was addressing the issues that they talked about, but those are things that not every candidate wants to do, or they want to go out and do it. Donald Trump remade the Republican Party from top to bottom. We are now the working class party. We are the party of working men and women from across the country. And they responded because he was talking to them about the issues that they care about. It's going to be critical for every Republican candidate going forward to go out there and have those conversations with their voters, whether it's a district or a statewide election, to be able to have the conversations about the issues that they care about. I think you cannot say that the issues that we saw in 2016 are the issues of today, or even in 2020, right? Certainly 2012, 28. So in 2028 for the presidential next time around, there's going to be new issue sets that are going to come up, and the voters are going to tell you what's important. I think the Democrats in this particular election cycle, they viewed America as a social experiment. And they tried to talk to the voters and tell them, this is what you need to care about. This is what you need to think about. And that is not what the voters cared about. It's not what they wanted to hear. And that's why Kamala Harris, despite all of the advantages that she came into this election with, was not able to close the deal and deliver that winning message.
The Republican National Committee's job is to win elections, to make that happen. And fundraising is part of that, but strategy is a key part of that. When you look at strategy, one of the things that I think is that maybe the toughest is crisis management. There are things that pop up that are unexpected. I think of when Trump was first inaugurated, and we had Russia collusion, which turned out to be a creation of the Hillary Clinton campaign of the Democratic Party. But we spent 2 years talking about it and used up 2 years of his presidency talking about it. That was immediately followed by the Ukraine story, which was someone who wasn't even on the phone call, a third-hand thing and kind of shepherded by Adam Schiff to go forward. But it was a fabricated crisis again. And it seemed that there was a fictional storyline that became reality. Do you worry that that will happen in 2025? And is there any way to plan ahead for that?
Well, you do worry about it, right? Because we've already seen this once, and we have seen a weaponization of the judiciary system by the Democrats in a way that has never been done here in America before. You know, when you see the lawsuits that have been filed against the president, when you've seen criminal charges that have come down from federal courts and state courts the way they have, you understand that that is a group that is never going to stop. And Adam Schiff is now going to go from being, you know, in the House to a Senate member. You know, that there's always going to be those types of pushes. We need to make sure that the president is protected from that. We need to make sure that he has the right people around him throughout the administration to be able to fend off those types of attacks. But also, it is very critical for him to go forward and advance his agenda to make sure that he is fighting every day for the American people. No presidential candidate, no congressional candidate, Senate candidate, governor's candidate ever in America has had to fight through what Donald Trump just fought through in this election cycle. You know, when you think about the weaponization of the judicial system, you think about the fact that the media, you know, put their thumb on the scale during that debate in a way that we've never seen moderators do. When they edited and altered a 60-minute interview the way that CBS did, you know, you look at all the different things that we saw from the mainstream media. You know, he was deplatformed on a number of different social media platforms. And if Elon Musk had not bought X, he probably still would not be on any of those platforms. So for him to fight through all of that, just shows you, honestly, his internal fortitude. I mean, it's absolutely, his strength is absolutely remarkable. But as we're going forward into this administration, there is nobody, including the president, who thinks he's going to get a free pass to go forward with his agenda. We're going to have to fight every single day, and we know it, and we're looking forward to the opportunity.
Final question, and this part really doesn't fall under the purview of the chairman of the party, but you're a political strategist. You understand the game as well as anyone. How does the president, how does the party encourage unity, particularly on the House side because of the slim margin, encourage unity within the party, but also encourage unity in the country, a country that's very divided?
Well, this country is not really that divided in terms of what matters to the country. On a partisanship level, yes, you know, we are very tight in the Senate, we're very tight in the House. You know, the president won each of those battleground states narrowly, right? I'll give Kellyanne Conway credit for the term a narrow landslide, right? But in terms of the issues that matter, right? The economy, inflation, and talking about housing prices, grocery prices, gasoline prices, that matters, right? In terms of shutting down the invasion that we saw at the southern border, in terms of making sure that we're strong enough as a country to protect our interests and our allies around the world, there is broad consensus that that is the way that this country needs to go. The Republican Party is more unified than we've been in generations. I mean, really, truly, coming out of our convention, you could feel the difference from where we were in 2016. This is a fully unified party behind Donald Trump. So we expect that the House and the Senate are going to work overtime to be able to move that agenda forward. And we desperately want to work with the Democrats on this. You know, I think that, you know, when I was working on election integrity throughout the course of the year of setting up basic protections on, you know, voter ID and making sure only American citizens can vote, that we had basic protections on mail. You know, those are ideas that are supported by 70, 80, 90% of all voters, including Democrats. But we never got the Democrats to buy into that conversation. Hopefully, legislatively, as we're moving forward, we'll actually be able to get some of those Democrats who will come across the aisle and work with us.
One of the most important elements looking forward is who President Trump will appoint to key positions. He's wasted no time in rolling out his choices. Some have been lauded, but like so many things with Donald Trump, some of his choices have been out of the ordinary. Among those being applauded is Caroline Leavitt as White House press secretary. Leavitt is a 27-year-old New Hampshire native who served as spokesperson for the 2024 Trump presidential campaign. She will be the youngest White House press secretary ever. Her position includes meeting with the media literally every single day, making it in and of itself one of the most visible jobs in the new Trump administration.
It's a tremendous honor that the president would place his confidence in me in a position of such importance.
President Trump is tapping Senator Marco Rubio of Florida to serve as Secretary of State, becoming Trump's envoy to the world.
In the short time that I've been here in Washington, nothing has frustrated me more than false choices like the one the president laid out tonight.
The two famously traded public insults during the 2016 presidential campaign, but have since buried the hatchet.
It's Rubio!
Becoming the Mutual Admiration Society publicly in 2024. Rubio was first elected to the United States Senate in 2010 after serving several years in the Florida legislature. He is still a relatively young man in the world of politics and is known to have presidential aspirations himself. The governor of South Dakota, 53-year-old Kristi Noem, has been selected by Trump to become Secretary of Homeland Security. She'll be in charge of the TSA, of border issues, and of much more. She's been an unflappable supporter of Donald Trump throughout his most difficult times. As mentioned, Trump has made some controversial nominations as well. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been chosen by President Trump to become the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Kennedy has a long history of controversial comments, including some regarding vaccines and COVID. The most controversial of Trump's choices so far was most certainly Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida for the position of Attorney General. That position is sometimes referred to as America's top cop. Gaetz' nomination was controversial because he'd been investigated by the Department of Justice for a variety of things, including sexual misconduct with a minor. No charges were ever filed. But Gaetz has made a long list of enemies in Washington, even within his own party. So it was no surprise when, after meeting with several U.S. senators, Gaetz withdrew his name from consideration. Mr. Trump has since chosen a much safer pick, former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. She is well-known, well-liked, and well-respected.
If your health is as strong as it seems from your review system.
President-elect Trump also announced that heart surgeon turned TV host Dr. Mehmet Oz would lead the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
That President Trump leads, he sees the
Oz was previously the director of the Cardiovascular Institute at New York Presbyterian Hospital and also enjoyed a TV career. The Dr. Oz Show ran on national syndicated television from 2009 to 2022.
We need the border closed. That's what we need.
Trump has made some under-the-radar picks as well, such as former Congressman Doug Collins. Collins served in the House of Representatives for 8 years and has now been tapped to be the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. In the late 1980s, Collins served 2 years in the United States Navy as a Navy chaplain, and after the September 11th attacks, he joined the U.S. Air Force Reserve Command, where he continues to serve as a chaplain. In that role, Collins came to understand many of the challenges that our veterans face. Finally, the one area in which Trump has befuddled some, while he has others quite excited, is a new Department of Government Efficiency. It's a temporary department, and Trump has chosen 2 men to head it up: Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy.
Where is he? Come on up here, Elon.
Musk is the quirky billionaire of Tesla and SpaceX fame who came out aggressively in favor of Donald Trump earlier in 2024. Ramaswamy is a self-made centimillionaire who ran against Trump before dropping out and becoming a Trump cheerleader in the 2024 primary presidential process. Both men boast a long and successful history in business. Trump would like to tap into that success and apply it to make government more efficient. Perhaps make it run more like a business. These nominees make one thing very clear. The United States government will not be business as usual with the same old bureaucrats during a second Trump administration.
Chairman Whatley is happy. His party won the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. In short, the Republicans control Washington. It's going to take that same discipline they showed in 2024, however, to leverage that control into lasting change.